Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, and every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description, and in every episode description, I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 4 of FX and Hulu's Shogun, entitled The Eightfold Fence. Before I even get started, I want to apologize for the lateness of this video. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but there's this norovirus going around that attacks the stomach, and it swept through my entire household. It took me out for a couple of days. And then once I was better, it took my wife out for a couple of days, which of course that made it so that I had to focus on running the household rather than, watching shows, writing my notes, and recording videos. So having said all that, I'm healthy now, working on getting caught up. I have a couple of videos dropping today and a lot prepared for a couple of Mike's Musings episodes. So make sure that you join the Patreon to get those, and shows coming out like Three Body Problem on Netflix, the new one from Benioff and Weiss, who made Game of Thrones. Their new show drops on Netflix on, what's today? The 19th, I think the 21st, so Thursday. I don't know if I'm going to cover that. I'm going to watch it first, but I do plan on checking it out, and it is a possibility that I'll cover it. So, moving on. The title of this episode refers to something of a coping mechanism that the Japanese use in order to separate their emotion from their duty. Mariko explains this concept in not too much detail to Blackthorn, basically saying that the Eightfold Fence is something that they build inside to protect themselves and to maintain who they are, even when their duty compels them to do something that they might not want to do. And this makes it easier for them to do that. And we see this concept being used by many characters in the show. Mariko and Fuji are both prime examples of this concept at play. But, I mean, and they're the kind of obvious ones, right? But Toranaga is too, though. Like, how often have we heard him talk about how you can only trust yourself? Like Toranaga has an eightfold fence around his eightfold fence. So it applies to him, too. As it pertains to this episode and the show as a whole, though, I kind of feel like I'm starting to divert farther and farther from popular opinion. Aside from the ending, which in terms of impact on the show is probably comparable to Ned Stark's death on Game of Thrones, I found this episode to largely be pretty dull and uneventful, in addition to making some questionable choices. For example, when there's a cold open on a show, I kind of expect it to be something special heading into the opening theme. This one just showed Yabashiga's village preparing for Toranaga's arrival. That's it. No one actually even arrived, I don't think, before the music started playing. It was just showing them preparing. And I'm not saying the scene is bad or misplaced or anything like that, but when the theme music started, I thought to myself, why was that a cold open? Like, there wasn't anything special about that. What a weird place to insert your opening theme. And I feel like I shouldn't be watching a show of this caliber, or a show that's supposed to be of a certain caliber, and be noticing like the placement of the opening theme. That entire sequence of the people arriving at Yabashiga's village was merely okay to me. there's a big emphasis on showing Yabashiga's reactions to his reception versus what Toranaga got, but this scene just felt overly long for what little information it provided. At the same time, the show kind of feels like at times that it's speeding past things that I personally find to be of value. For example, the relationship that's clearly forming between Blackthorn and Mariko, none of this feels earned or plausible. Side note, talking about things that feel too long and too dull, and in the same show having things that feel rushed over, including forced relationships. I'm by no means saying that the shows are of the same caliber, but these are the same criticisms I levied against like Mayfair Witches that came on AMC, and that show was a complete piece of shit. This is way better than that, but again, I'm noticing like, wow, I said the same stuff about Mayfair Witches. The difference is my criticisms that I'm opening with for Shogun are very, very targeted. A couple of small things, but all in all, still an enjoyable episode, or had very enjoyable aspects. Whereas Mayfair Witches was all shitty all the time. But anyway, going back to this unearned and implausible relationship between Blackthorn and Mariko, I could see the appeal in Blackthorn for Mariko as a guy who seems like a regular person, and he looks at her as another regular person, as a woman, and not a piece of property like Buntaro did. But how could a woman with this much class and sophistication instantly fall for a baboon like Blackthorn? Like, yeah, sure, it can happen over time, like as he matures and evolves, and or she becomes more accepting of who he is. But for them to potentially be having sex in the 4th episode just seems wild to me, particularly given that they just had this character saying he doesn't even believe in casual sex anyway. And then this leads me to another example of, I think, questionable decision making. I thought it was weird how they handled this, I don't know, maybe maybe not sex scene between Mariko and Blackthorn. Like, we can't see the woman who approaches Blackthorn in this scene, and the show intentionally obscures her. And at the time, I assumed it was Mariko and thought, well, how the fuck is this happening since they have no chemistry and he said he doesn't fuck on the first date? But then when he brings it up the next day, she claims it was another woman that they got for him, which I accepted in the moment as the truth. But then I'm reading online and listening to podcasts, and apparently there's a lot of confusion surrounding whether or not that was Mariko that he was with. And it doesn't matter to me who he was. What matters to me is, who it was. What matters to me is the choice of making it confusing for the audience. Like, they didn't have to hide the identity of the woman from us. Like, if we knew for sure it was her, we would then know she was lying or joking when she said it wasn't. As it stands, now both Blackthorn and the audience are confused because he thought it was her too. So unless they're both in on the joke, and then if they are, why lie in front of Fuji? She doesn't speak Portuguese. So, like, I don't know. It's all of these things are things I shouldn't be wondering about when I'm watching this show. And I wouldn't have to wonder about these things if they just executed this sequence a little bit better, a little bit smarter. And that's not even including the implausibility of the two having sex right now in the first place. But now all I'm seeing on the internet is like confusion, and I just feel like the audience didn't need to be confused here. Only Blackthorn needs to be confused, or failing that, Fuji. Another example of a scene or a sequence of scenes that felt long and tedious but provide little of value was the initial canon training sequence. This is a long sequence of scenes. It's like it goes to a full montage that shows the progress of Blackthorn training them to, like, from first day to, like, okay, now we're getting somewhere and they're starting to learn, like, this whole long sequence. That shows Blackthorn training this army to use these naval cannons. But all it really amounted to was tell the audience that cannons are traditionally inaccurate and then show them how accurate these cannons are in order to basically paint Blackthorn as a good teacher. And they spent a lot of time on that shit, man. All I had in my notes was Blackthorn showing them how to do impressive shit with cannons that we only know is impressive because they told us that they're traditionally inaccurate. And it's like, I didn't need that scene to be that long. Like, everything that he was saying in that scene, all gibberish. Nothing is going to make sense to anyone who's not a fucking military cannon expert or whatever. And all I'm sitting there is like, okay, you told us that they're inaccurate. I'm seeing them be inaccurate. I'm seeing them be accurate, being accurate. That's really all I need. But anyway, now that I've gotten a couple of gripes out of the way, let me talk about what I did like, because there is stuff that I did like. And you guys know I like to get the negative shit out of the way first anyway. Because it's the stuff that everyone else is too chicken shit to say. Just like I thought that one boat race scene in episode 2 or whatever, that how I was saying that was shitty, and then people come back later, oh, I thought that was shitty. You weren't saying that in the moment. Anyway, I continue to be really into the political machinations, the scheming, the plotting, the backstabbing. It's my favorite thing about Game of Thrones, and it's my favorite thing here as well. I'm more interested in the plotting and scheming of the two aspiring lords, actually, than I am pretty much anything else on the show. So we have Omi, that's Yabashiga's nephew. He runs their village in Ajiro. He has that bald strip that runs across the top of his head right here. He's one of the major players here. And then you have Nagakato, Nagakato. He's the son and heir of Toranaga. In this episode, we see their ambition on full display. Omi suggests to Yabashiga, who's playing both sides to an insane degree. Like, Yabashiga is kind of like, I'm not gonna say the Japanese equivalent of Blackthorn, because I like Yabashiga and I don't like Blackthorn, but like both of those actors are kind of hamming it up a little bit and playing their roles very. They're really going balls deep into these roles, but like I said, Yabashiga's playing both sides to a ridiculous degree. But Omi suggests to him that they can elect the 5th regent. They can then vote to kill Toranaga, and then Yabashiga can use the guns that he currently has in his village to essentially curry favor with Ishido and save his own ass from being executed, because he's being held accountable for allowing Toranaga to escape in the first place. It's a weak plan with a lot of room for error, but it does serve to show Omi's ambition and how he thinks. And I think that ambition is going to be really important as the show moves forward. And then we have Nagakato, who, man, boy, oh boy. Here's a guy that they have consistently showed to be aching for his father's approval. His recklessness combined with his need for acceptance was destined to manifest in a regretful way, and that's exactly what happens at the end of this episode. Shido's, I don't know, his military man, his right-hand man, whatever, Jozen, the guy with the hat, he shows up to bring Yabashiga to Osaka because, like I said, he's being held accountable for helping Toranaga escape, which basically means that they will lightly suggest that he kill himself. But to buy time, Yabashiga wants to show off the new cannons and thus his value. Problem is, Omi's concerned that this could be showing too much of their hand. But Nagakato solves for mostly all of that by settling his own personal long-standing 4-episode beef with Jozen by blowing him and his entire team to smithereens with the cannons in a grotesque and brutal scene that I absolutely loved, and it made up for all of the flaws that I mentioned earlier. I also love how this changes the game. Like, we heard Mariko say that this means war, like like Bugs Bunny, and it does. Toranaga is already under fire, wanted, and he's on the run. For all intents and purposes, Yabashiga is now too. And then you have Nagakato making this brash move against Jozen, but reality here, or at least the perception of reality anyway, is that this is a move by Toranaga against Ishido, which, with neither one of them having any say or influence on the events that took place. You know, at the beginning, I compared this to Ned Stark's death in Game of Thrones, and I don't mean by shock factor. Shock factor wise, Ned Stark's death is like top 5 all time in television. Well, it's an all time over right there. But what I mean is that this one action is going to have a massive ripple effect on the entire remainder of the story, just as Ned's death did. I think I said it. I think I said it in the Discord, but technically on Game of Thrones, what kicks off everything was Jon Arryn's death, but that doesn't happen on screen. It's just talked about in like the 2nd episode or something like that. It's when Ned is killed that really propels. That's what the show is like. All right, we're really taking off, and that's what's gonna happen here. I'm not even questioning. Like, I'm not even saying that's what's happening here. This is gonna be the moment that kind of like sparks everything that the show is gonna do going forward. I'm also suspicious of this chick that Omi is fucking as well. Her name's Kiku. She's got a really mysterious and conniving aura about her, always grabbing like sharp, pointy things out of her hair, like the geishas that you would see on TV and in movies. And she was really in his ear in this episode about how he should be a lord. And this is the kind of stuff that I'm here for. Not Blackthorn's buffoonery or rushed / shoehorned romance. Side note, I will never understand why every single show or film feels like it has to have a romantic relationship in it. I don't think anyone who would have watched this show about 17th century feudal Japan was like, you know what this is missing? A boyfriend and a girlfriend. I don't think anybody was going to say that. But anyway, I also mentioned in a previous video that I'm intrigued by Fuji and that she seemed like she's going to be a major player going forward. Well, in this episode, she's essentially given to Blackthorn as his consort, and we quickly see how her eightfold fence about the loss of her husband and her son allows her to fully support Blackthorn and be there for him. I love that scene where him and I think it was Omi were arguing about whether or not he should have his guns. And he gave them to Fuji, and then when Omi tries to come after Fuji for the guns, she pulls it out and be like, bitch, get the fuck on. And he was like, all right, cool. I love loyalty, man. I really do. She's following him around the crib and shit. Mariko's like, she ain't supposed to sleep if you awake. I'm like, dang, all right, I guess I'll take some Dramamine. I also liked the gun and sword exchange that they had, too. I thought that was nice. Lastly, we get a bit more of a tease surrounding Mariko's past and what happened with her. She says she has a legendary family name. I'm really excited to learn what happened there. Those of you watching this video have probably already watched episode 5. Now that I'm fully healthy and recovered, I'll be watching that probably tonight. So check it on the Facebook if you are so inclined. But hoping to learn a little bit more about Mariko's past in episode 5. So yeah, there's a lot going on that I'm definitely into, and I'm enjoying the show overall. But this is far from the model of perfection that's being painted right now. I'm not saying it won't be that, but I am saying that if something isn't working, I'm not going to sit here and parrot everyone else because I'm scared of people disagreeing with me. So while this episode had a lot to like, it also had some weird creative choices. It's rushed through some good stuff. It spent way too much time on some mediocre stuff. It is what it is. Like I said at the top, the way this sickness kind of swept through my house, it got me way behind, but I'm working on getting caught up. I know this video is a week late, but I'll be watching episode 5 tonight. Hopefully I can get that video up tomorrow. And that's all I got for you guys. Let me know what you thought about episode 4 in the comments. Don't spoil me on episode 5. Like I said, I'll be watching it tonight. And hopefully I will see you guys tomorrow with a video for episode 5. And until then, peace.